Quentin Tarantino is probably the most famous director in the current era, with many of his movies being major parts of pop culture, and I have seen all 10 of his movies, so I'm going to rank them. I plan on making more of these director rankings because they're fun, and Tarantino is a good starting point. Yeah, I don't disagree with the majority. Death Proof is pretty easily my least favorite Tarantino movie. It was the only one I hadn't seen before making this video, so making this was the only reason I watched the movie. I had heard bad things about how it's boring and overly horny, but I tried to go in with an open mind, and man, did I hate the first half of this movie. It was totally boring and unbearable to watch. It felt like the budget was $3, and I know that's the point or whatever, but I just hated it. The grainy style looked like shit, and the dialogue was also really off-putting, and it felt too hard to be unique and edgy. It just totally fell flat for me. About 40 minutes in, I was pulled out of the movie completely and dreading the rest of the movie. But then something happened, and the second half took a drastic turn, and it was pretty solid. All the main girl characters had great chemistry and were funny, and the main conflict was so absurd that I couldn't help but enjoy it. It didn't make up for the first half, but the Kurt Russell and girls chase scene at the end was pretty cool. I would rewatch the second half, but never the first half. Overall, I'd give it like a 5 out of 10. The Hateful Eight tries to do a hell of a lot more than Death Proof, which feels like more of a passion project that even Tarantino recognized wasn't his best work, but The Hateful Eight feels like it's trying to be a great epic and dramatic story, told in non-linear fashion with tons of twists and turns, and I don't really think it sticks to landing. My biggest problem was the cast of characters. It kinda works in 12 Angry Men fashion, where the whole story relies on the characters working well together and being unique and interesting on their own, but I don't think they are. The only characters I liked were Kurt Russell's and Walton Goggins. Everyone else, even Samuel L. Jackson, who I usually like in Tarantino's movies, are just pretty uninteresting and don't have a lot of exposition. There are some cool scenes of violence and classic Tarantino stuff, with the ending especially being pretty entertaining, but I just didn't give a fuck about anything that was going on in the story, because Tarantino did nothing to make me care about the characters. And instead of further explaining stuff, it just wastes time on unfunny and obnoxious bits, like the door being unstable and the coffee stuff. I just thought it was wasting time, even more than most Tarantino movies. I don't hate the movie. In fact, I think it's pretty entertaining, but I just have way too many flaws with it. I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10, but a very low one. Tarantino counts the two Kill Bills as the same movie, but they were released separately and one is way better than the other, so I'm separating them. Kill Bill Volume 2 is a lot more aimless and all over the place than the first one. I think the idea and setup of the first one is the most interesting part, and then when Tarantino actually has to do the whole revenge plot shit and get to the big payoff, he kinda fucks it up a bit. The ending of this movie had me so confused and underwhelmed. I just hate the idea that the bride starts sympathizing with Bill. Like, we set up this badass girl who's set on revenge, and now doing a standard revenge is bad plot. I just couldn't forgive it. I also think the characters that the bride is trying to kill are way less interesting in this one. Like, nothing can compare to the Japanese girl plot. This one just feels a lot more forgettable. It has its good moments, like the training scenes with the crazy-ass sensei dude, and the part where the bride is buried alive is awesome, but this movie has so many flaws and tries to do way too much in not enough time, and that's why I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10. Django Unchained is the first Tarantino movie on this list I would say is pretty good. It's a big improvement on Kill Bill Volume 2, and a movie I would recommend to anyone, but it's definitely not perfect, and it has maybe as many flaws as the ones ranked lower. The plot in this movie is totally all over the place, and could have been tightened up big time, especially when we get to the Leo segment. The stuff in Leo's house is awesome, and grips you in, but in the context of the rest of the movie, it feels kinda weird. Like, Christopher Waltz's character is kinda thrown aside, and all the focus starts to go on Django and Leo, which I think is cool, you know, all the growth, and now we're with the main protagonist and antagonist. But then Christoph Waltz does a certain thing that had me kind of confused and annoyed, just because it was out of nowhere and felt out of character. And now all of a sudden the main antagonist is Samuel L. Jackson, who's great in this movie. In fact, every actor here is amazing, except Jamie Foxx, he's like decent. But Samuel L. Jackson, I just didn't think was a proper antagonist for Jamie Foxx. It kind of pulled me out. And the whole ending sequence was just not intriguing because the movie brushed aside the actual main plot of the movie for this weird epilogue sort of thing. But the movie up until this point is badass and super entertaining. Seeing this slave destroy all the people that wronged him is really satisfying to see. It's super fun, but not without its flaws. which kind of sums up Tarantino's career. I'd still give it like a 7 out of 10. Jackie Brown was another Tarantino movie I put off for a while because I heard it was just lesser Pulp Fiction, and I do agree with that, but I still think this movie goes hard as hell. It's an adaptation of a novel, which works in its favor and against it, and makes the structure of the movie a lot more concise, and the pacing is smooth and easy to follow, but also doesn't allow for the crazy non-linear shit that Tarantino is known for. This is probably his most normal movie, which I think is really cool, and he needs something like this. It's a classic crime thriller with some awesome performances from Samuel L. Jackson and Robert Forster, as well as Pam Grier as Jackie Brown herself. The relationship Max Cherry and Jackie Brown had was really entertaining and probably my favorite part of the movie. They were wholesome and badass together, which is a hard combo to do right. The soundtrack of this movie is also awesome, which is a major part of Tarantino's success as a director, and I think the first few movies on this list struggle with having a great score, which makes them weaker. The only major flaw I have with this is De Niro is kinda not great in this movie, and his character is pretty useless. But other than that, I really like Jackie Brown. In fact, I give it an 8 out of 10. It's pretty great. Check it out. Maybe it'll be a pleasant surprise for you too. Alright, so now we're in really great classic territory here with Kill Bill Volume 1. Tarantino loves the violence and cool fight scenes with awesome characters and sick atmospheres, and Kill Bill does this probably better and more than all of his movies. This movie looks phenomenal, the colors are super bright, and all the fight scenes are kinda hypnotizing in a way. The soundtrack also fucks ass and makes the already intense and gripping story even more engaging. I would say this movie is style over substance, but I think it does a good job setting up the bride and her revenge arc. If Kill Bill Volume 2 nailed the ending, I think I would like the first one even more, but I still think it's some of the best and most fun shit Tarantino made. It doesn't have the depth to be an amazing masterpiece or anything, but it's really fun the whole time, and I would watch it at any time and any place. I'd give it a strong 8 out of 10, but now we're really going to get into some of my favorites from Tarantino. Reservoir Dogs is Tarantino's first movie, which is kinda crazy because this shit took balls. Like, it's totally out of order, and there's not even like a heist in the movie, just a bunch of random scenes during the story that were put together in a strange and unique way, but I love it. This movie nails the cast, which is very important, because if this had a Hateful Eight type of cast, it wouldn't have worked nearly as well, but I love all the characters here, especially Steve Buscemi. I just love that guy. And it also might be my favorite or second favorite Tarantino script. The dialogue here is hilarious, but can also get really emotional too, especially near the end. But still, parts of dialogue like the no tipping part and the scene where the colors are chosen for the names of the people in the heist are really funny, but also don't feel unnecessary. They stay entertaining while moving the story forward. This movie is also directed awesomely. The iconic "stuck in the middle with you" scene is the most famous, deservedly so, but it takes real talent to direct this movie and make it so easy to follow with how confusing it is on paper, especially because it's his first movie. But the movie nails absolutely everything. Even with the small stakes, it pulls you in and has your attention the whole time. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. Inglourious Basterds was actually my introduction to Tarantino, and I've watched it more than any other movie from him, probably nearing 5 or 6 times now. I just love this movie. It's so fun, dark, and intense the entire time. The movie can jump from a hilarious Brad Pitt scene to a terrifying Christoph Waltz scene where you fear the well-being of every character on screen. It's a pretty long movie, at like 2.5 hours, but the whole thing is so entertaining and fast-paced. Some of Tarantino's best work as a director. The casting of this movie is so good. Like every character, I can't imagine being played by anyone else, especially Hans Landa. I mean, there's a reason that character is so iconic. I will say the script is not my favorite Tarantino script, but there's still some great dialogue, even if it's not the best part of the movie. There's no other war movie like this one. It makes no attempt at being an anti-war movie, which I think is pretty cool, because not everything needs to be some statement, like Come and See or Paths of Glory. Sometimes you just need to see Hitler getting shot 100 times, and Brad Pitt doing horrible Italian accents. And don't even get me started on that opening scene. This movie just rules. 9 out of 10. I originally had Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at like 5, but then I thought about it and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? This movie is like the best thing ever, and yeah, that's why it's at 2 now. This is Tarantino's funniest movie, I think. Like, this shit is hilarious. My favorite part is the ending scene where Leo and Brad Pitt get their house invaded. That shit had me dying watching it, and I still laugh just thinking about it. But there's so many funny moments in here. Leo forgetting his lines and absolutely losing his shit. Brad Pitt beating the shit out of Bruce Lee, Al Pacino being in the movie at all is so funny. I mean, the whole idea of this movie is hilarious. It can also get so intense though, especially the Brad Pitt scene where he goes to the Manson family. There's just this underlying sense of dread that reminds you that Tarantino can still scare you in any scenario. The performances from Leo and Brad Pitt rule as well, especially Pitt, who 100% deserved that Oscar. This whole movie is so fucking fun, and I love it. 9 out of 10. Pulp Fiction is one of my favorite movies, and I feel like half the population also feels the same way about it, so I'm kinda gonna shorten this one. The cast is awesome, the soundtrack is one of the best, the screenplay is one of the best, it's fucking hilarious, and it has that Samuel L. Jackson scene where he recites the Bible and shit. Yeah, it's Pulp Fiction, it rules. 10 out of 10, and easily my favorite Tarantino movie of all time.